Guys, what's the most obvious hint you got from a girl that turned out not to be a hint? When I was a teenager, I had mostly female friends. One of them I was quite interested in, and one night during a party at my dad's house, she was trying to make herself a drink and splashed water over herself. Shortly after, she was explaining to me just how much water had splashed on her. During this explanation, she took my hand and put it under. After the party, when everyone was going to bed, she decided to sleep in my room. I offered her my bed and said I would sleep on the floor. She asked to borrow a t-shirt of mine to sleep in and got into bed. At this point, she said she was cold. The house was warm. I offered to get up and turn on the heating. She said not to, and I was reluctant to make the obvious offer of sharing the bed at this point because I didn't want to risk a friendship. The next few weeks, it kept happening. She made a point of sharing sleeping couches with me at future parties and regularly falling asleep or lay on me in social situations. Asked me into her bedroom late at night after taking drives together through the countryside, and even one time Skyping me in her dressing gown. So shortly after all this, I told her I was interested in her as more than a friend. I mean, even mutual friends who had been her friend longer than mine thought she was hinting, and I was promptly shot down and then attacked by her for ruining our friendship with feelings. Apparently, all that hinting behavior was not intentional and just a personality quirk of hers to be overly flirty. Turns out overly flirty is code for just here for the cuddles, not the commitment. Story 2. I became reconnected to a friend from high school that I hadn't talked to in years through Bumble. I was pleasantly surprised that, after exchanging numbers, she took initiative and suggested we see each other for brunch the next morning. Eventually, I mentioned that I was baking for work and she said, "Wow, you're smart and you can cook. How do you keep the women away?" I respond saying that I hope she wouldn't be able to have an answer after brunch, which makes her laugh. Brunch goes well, and 3 days later, she offers to buy me dinner to repay me for paying for brunch. I'm flabbergasted and appreciative, but I declined since I already had plans that night and didn't want to be rude. She comes over that Saturday to play board games with my friends and I, and talks about how she should love to come again the next time I host something like this. I ask her if she wants to go paddleboarding, and she's super on board with it. I'd been texting every day and she seemed rather interested, so I thought she was genuinely interested in getting to know me more and potentially date in the future. She gets sick, and with bad weather approaching, I say that we can always go another day. There's always time for a first date. I then get told that she's not looking to be dating yet and is still getting over her last relationship. A couple of weeks later, we went to church together and I met her family, who apparently are really impressed, and she invited me to a barbecue with only family and significant others. I'm so confused. Story 3. I invited a friend of mine to be my date for a wedding. The wedding was great. We drank plenty and she even got me on the dance floor. After the party winded down, I went to take her back to her car that was parked at my place. We got in the car and started driving back, listening to old Blink-182 and singing along. She reached over and held my hand. I had been single for 3 years, so this was nice. I decided I'm going to take the long way home. Taking back streets and going way out and around before heading home. We finally got back to my house, and she asked if I wanted to hang out for one more drink. She comes inside and we stand in my kitchen having one more glass of wine. As I'm pouring the drinks, she turns to Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. We held our drinks in one hand and each other with the other hand. We slowly danced in my kitchen, and it was amazing. The song was coming to an end, and I decided, this is it. This is where the guy kisses the girl. I leaned in to kiss her, and she very politely pushed me away. I held my head in shame, and we finished off the night playing music and drunkenly dancing in my kitchen. Even though nothing romantic came from this, she's still one of my best friends, and this is my favorite memory from the past year. Such an excellent night. Story 4. This female friend and I both shared the same hobby, and we saw each other regularly at meetups, hanging out and talking, and one time she had a problem with her phone and I helped her out. It was a minor fix, but she was really happy and grateful. "Oh, thank you so much." "Okay, you're getting a hug." And didn't think too much of it until a while later when she had some good news and posted about it online, and I congratulated her. She noted that we hadn't seen each other in person in several days. Conflicting work schedules, so we were just never in the same place at the same time. "Thank you. I miss hanging out with you. Hopefully I get to see you this week." Lots of other similar messages online. She enjoys our time together. She laments that we haven't been able to see each other in person, etc. I wasn't sure if I was reading too much into this, so I asked another female friend what she thought, and she thought I was being oblivious and stupid. "Okay, seems pretty obvious she likes you. You should totally ask her out the next time you see her, if you like her too." At the next meetup, she says hi. It's been too long and gives me a hug. And another one of our mutual friends is asking her how she's been, and she says she's been super busy and she'll have to take off early rather than stick around to socialize because her boyfriend is getting off work really soon. And then they're going to have dinner. And and I'm a bigger idiot than I thought. It took 10 seconds on my phone to look at her online profile. In a relationship with Rick Smith. Wait, Rick? That Rick? I've known him longer than I've known her. We've hung out tons of times, talked about stuff, and he's never mentioned her. Also, she's never mentioned Rick until this meetup. Wow. I read the whole situation completely wrong. Later, I closely pay attention to her interaction with other people. Oh, hey, John. I haven't seen you in a long time. Give me a hug. I missed you. Carrie, how you been? I know, I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss hanging out with everyone here at meetups. I've just been really busy. So she's just very outgoing and friendly with all her friends like that. Story 5. Girl I kinda liked came over and passed me and my friends by and said hi to me with her group of friends at a hockey game. Nothing unusual, even though they were sitting really far away as they probably just had to use the bathroom or something. Later, a puck goes over the net while they're warming up and I go down to get it, but can't. It went in an era I couldn't get to and didn't feel like dealing with any security guards jumping barriers. I'd head back to my seat. Maybe 10 minutes go by and a group of girls come by again and the girl holds up a puck and gives it to me. I thanked her and then she sat down, maybe 2 rows down and 10 feet to the right. Different spot than last time. My friends were all like, dude, she gave you the puck. Go sit with her. As I was about to head down, more of her friends joined her and she was now in the center of them. I decided I would text her later. With the help of some of my girlfriends, I constructed a text for her. Sent it, and long story short, she said she was kind of seeing someone else, but she definitely wanted to hang out as friends. All my friends were confused as to why she gave me the puck. We didn't talk outside of class, just we're in a group project together. If she didn't have any interest in me. Personally, I think she just might be a nice person and had no interest in keeping a puck. Story 6. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a couple years ago, I went to visit this girl I had met in 8th grade on a choir trip. We hadn't seen each other since we first met, but had talked on and off. Finally, years later and out of college, I decided to take a road trip 8 hours out to go see her. I was going to stay at her place for a couple days and see the city. Well, the week before I go, she tells me that she just got out of a bad relationship and doesn't know if I'm expecting it to be a one-weekend stand or something more than that because she couldn't do either. Not really so much a hint as it was her straight out telling me that. I was cool with it though. Still down for the adventure and had already requested the time off, so I told her I understood. No big deal. So when I get out there, we go out to a bar for a while and then hang out at her place, play games and such. That night she says I can sleep in her bed and not to mind if she gets snuggly. I'm cool, no worries. But she's snuggling me super tight all night and has her face like right next to mine. Not feeling like I should go for a kiss, but kept telling myself that she had specifically told me she wasn't down for that, so I shrug it off and go to sleep. The next day we go out for drinks again and she's like, why didn't you make a move last night? I was being super obvious that I wanted you to. And I was like, yeah, I thought that, but what was even more obvious was when you straight up told me you didn't want to do anything like that before I came up. She says, well, yeah, but I changed my mind like 5 minutes after you got here. Insert shrugging guy thing that people do. But once we had cleared things up, that night was fun. She was super cool, other than that little misinformation thingy. Sleeping arrangements. Just snuggle, no kiss. The modern day friend zone anthem. Story 7. I kind of got the reverse. Best friend for a long time was a girl I used to date in high school. Dated for 3 months and stayed best friends for 5 years. So a month into my first year at university, we planned for her to come visit for a day, then go visit her sister in a nearby town. A few hours into the day, she keeps complaining about not wanting to stay with her sister while her sister's boyfriend is there. I offer to let her stay there. I tell her she can take my bed and I'll sleep on the floor. I'm a college student. It wouldn't be the first time I've slept on the floor. She refuses and says she'll sleep on the floor. I can't let that happen, so out of both our stubbornness, we decide to sleep together in this tiny dorm room twin bed. First night, nothing. She slept on my chest, we cuddled a bit. It was great. We were good friends and were both a little lonely anyway. Around 3 a.m. on the second night, I woke up to a kiss in the cheek. I straight up asked in a groggy voice, duh, what was that? She pretended she didn't know anything happened. I go, who cares? Roll over and kiss her. You make out for a half hour or so and go back to sleep. We've been dating for a year. A wise woman once said the secret to a long-term relationship is finding a best friend you want to be intimate with. Story 8. I'll start by saying I had a huge crush on this girl. In college, she called me over to her place because she thought she heard a noise in her apartment. I just got a pizza, so brought it over. She didn't have furniture yet in her living room, so we sat on the floor with a blanket, ate pizza, and watched movies until late at night. It wasn't a big blanket, so we had to sit tight. It was time to go to sleep, and I said I'll sleep on the floor downstairs, and she said, "Absolutely not. My bed is big enough for both of us." So we went upstairs. She went into her closet to change, but did not close the door, and it was easy to see her changing. Being a respectful guy and quite frankly pretty poor at making moves at the time in my life, I froze. She had to get up earlier than me and take a shower before going to class. I waited until she left before I went downstairs myself, but there was a note there for me. Don't remember exactly what it said, but the main points were, "I love you. I trust you more than anyone else I've ever met. I'm so lucky to have you in my life." So I thought this was the sign to make the move. Obviously, the bed was one also. So the next day, knowing she was going to be at class, I brought her flowers and left a note telling her how I felt, thinking how lucky I truly am. She writes me a letter soon after and drops it off in my apartment. The whole letter was about how she loved me, but not that way, and that she never saw me in that light. I was crushed. She still wanted to be friends. I couldn't do it. So heart-wrenching. Let my guard down and got, well, crushed. Story 9. I was out on a tour, and being a band of single and married chaps, we were all looking for a lovely lady to occupy our post-performance. The performance went really well. Claps and cheers were had, and I was introduced to a friend of a friend who was quite lovely. I was openly flirting with her, and it was all well received. The topic of potential significant others came up, to which she replied, "Well, monogamy just isn't really a thing to me." Ding, 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 that's the prize bell, folks. Shortly after, she invites me to stay at her place, so I don't have to share a hotel with other bandmates. I happily accepted the offer, and just to remove any shadow of doubt, said I wouldn't mind sleeping on the couch. She declined, saying her bed would be much more comfortable. Bow chicka wow wow, more drinks are had. My bandmates have companions for the evening, and we're all off to our respective rooms. As we lay down, the mood changed. No affection, sad songs played in her phone. She was clearly missing some other dude. My heart drops. I ended up laying there a while and decided, who cares? Don't leave. Stay and just cuddle with a girl, which she was seemingly happy for. We kept in touch a little afterwards. I hope she worked out whatever she needed to. Story 10. I came over to her house to help her build a bed she bought from a store. Apparently, she wanted some male strength. Her words, not mine, to build it, and her dad has some hip issues. Her parents were home when I came over, but went out for dinner around the time we finished up. So I wiped the sweat from my brow and helped clean up the mess left over from the unboxing. She got me a drink of water and a fruit snack and some for herself, which I enjoyed, while we chatted for a bit. When I finished the snack, I got up and headed for the door to leave, while making goodbyes. I was mostly out the door when I said something like, "Hope the bed works out for you." She stopped just behind me and said slowly, I think we're alone right now." I was like, here we go, I guess. So I said, "Yeah, they left about 15 minutes ago for dinner. I think I heard them say they were going to a restaurant that's a 20-minute drive away." I had stopped, hand on the doorknob, and she followed up with, "Yeah, they like going there a lot. Have a nice trip. Be safe." Kick self internally. Yep, will do. See you later. And then I never tried to interpret hints again. Story 11. I became friends with a very attractive coworker, and we kept in touch long after we had both left the job. Years later, she invited me to come hang out at her house several towns over. She was newly single, and we had always had a good vibe together. Anyway, so I arrived at her house thinking to myself not to read too deeply into this. Whatever happens, happens. She says, "Let's stay in," and offers me a bunch of my favorite beer. Okay, this is looking positive. And she asks if I want to spend the night. Of course I do. We drink and laugh, and then the topic turns to intimacy. Her exact words followed. "I haven't had intimacy in a while." She says this while looking straight in my eyes. That's a green light if I ever saw one, so I go in for a kiss. What I got back was not a kiss but shock, anger, and a lecture about how she trusted me in her house, and how it was uncool to try and make a move. To this day, I don't understand it, and I now ignore all signals out of caution. Story 12. Classic girl at the coffee shop, but we start talking more each time. It gets to the point where she leaves her station to come say hi if she's not working the front. I'm developing a bit of a crush, but that's still well within the realm of normal barista stuff. One day I'm going through the drive-thru, and she's the one taking orders. On the way to my car, her table went out, but she came in to talk anyway. She gets somebody else to take over the line and keeps talking with me all the way to the window. Next time I see her, it's really busy. But I grow a pair and give her my number on a card and ask her to call me later. Not the smoothest, but it's my first time sticking my neck out since getting over a long-term relationship that had recently ended, and I'm a bit rusty. She smiles and says, "Thanks." After that, for like 2 months, every time I came through, if she was there, she'd get somebody to take over as soon as she saw me and go hide in the back. Didn't even get a not interested conversation, just a look of terror. Story 13. I was good friends with this girl and thought I had a chance. One night we were messaging while she was out with friends and I was at home playing with my dog. Just texting each other, and we started talking about Harry Potter movies randomly, and I had never seen them. Turns out she was a huge Harry Potter fan and was utterly shocked I hadn't. So then she starts talking about being bored and had a couple drinks too many and shouldn't drive. So I offered to pick her up and take her home since I was bored anyway. Fast forward to the car ride. I pick her up and start driving back to her place, and of course, we're just talking about Harry Potter the whole way. Only 10-minute drive, college town life. Anyway, mid-drive, she mentions that we should watch Harry Potter together. And taking that as my cue, I respond with, "How about tonight?" She was like, "Perfect." So I pull into her apartment parking garage, park, turn off the car. She hops out and turns to me and says, "Let me know when you get home and start it, and I'll start it too," and walks off. I'm still recovering from that curve. Story 14. Went on 3 dates with this girl. Never got a good read on her. She kept saying she was having fun. Took her to the symphony. She got all dolled up. Always one-word texts. Like, "Girl, are you even excited?" Literally 2 texts over 1 week to set it up. Didn't even know if she would answer the door, honestly. Took her back to her house, made out. I was pretty sure she was into it, but she was basically mute. I don't even know. Letting me put my digits in her was a pretty solid hint, but at some point, "Lady, you gotta say or do something that lets me know if you're into it." I kind of just gave up because it didn't feel right without any sort of connection. I think in the end we just didn't click. So it's not her fault, but it was pretty confusing that she didn't want to talk about anything ever, at all. I guess I could just push harder, but is it really consent if I don't even know if she wants it until she texts me a smiley face the next day? I'm pretty sure she just wasn't really into me. I'm a tough one to like, so yeah. Story 15. I was on a second date with a girl. We had already made out a little bit in my car, and she invited me up to her apartment. In her bedroom, she became pretty chatty. By chatty, I mean she kept talking about how she considers herself to be an adventurous witch. At one point, she pulled out some novelty-shaped lipstick, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "And this is my lipstick because I love it on my lips." A few minutes later, she finally sat down on the bed with me and I made a move, and she pushed me off. Bonus round. A few years ago, there was this girl I had a crush on. She was sweet, but had terrible taste in men. Always ended up with dudes that would hurt her. Anyway, one day we were hanging out and she brought up her bad love life. And then, "You're a really great guy. I wish someone like you would just ask me out." Well, now that you mention it, you're a great girl too. Dinner date on Friday? Oh, oh, oh no. I didn't mean you. I meant someone like you, but attractive. Oh, shooty. Jeez, that was a burn, man. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 16. Alright, I'm late to the party, but in hindsight, this is too great not to share. So I was like 15 to 16 years old at the time, and my friend and I were at a public party thing. I'm actually not sure how to call it in English. Anyways, I lock eyes with this pretty girl and we're smiling at each other, but my scared teeny self obviously didn't go over to talk to her. However, I met her the next day at the beach, that is close to the party from the day before, and we started talking. Actually, I think she approached me, but I can't really remember it. So we talked, and immediately we just hit it off, and boom, we got a date the next day. So our date went pretty good. Nothing too special. We went to the beach and chilled and then ate something. It was pretty fun, and she really seemed to like me. In the evening, we sat at a rather isolated bridge or catwalk. Thanks, Google Translator. At the beach. It was actually pretty romantic. I put my arm around her and went in for the kiss. What happened? 1 centimeter before our lips meet each other, she pulls back and goes like, "Ah!" It makes a weird face. I'm like, "What in the world? Are you okay?" And she said she was fine. So we're sitting there and I'm confused for a good 5 minutes, and then I decide to try again and she does the same thing again. So I ask her again, and she tells me that she recently broke up with her boyfriend and that she still loves him. However, that wasn't even the worst part. Obviously, in my head, I'm like, but whatever. I mean, it was quite the tease. So after a while, I'm like, all right, girl, clear up your mind, and I want to go home. Everything is cool, right? Well, on my way home, three dudes I barely know sprint after me and scream at me. I had no idea what was happening, so I just waited for them to get to me. Anyways, it turns out after I left, the girl went to her friends at the beach and told them I mistreated her. By the way, this all happened at a camping site, for the lack of a better word, and it was not fun having people ask me if I mistreated a girl for 2 weeks straight. Story 17. I have a couple. I work at a Walmart in the auto department. This girl came by crying because her car wouldn't stay turned on and she went through 3 batteries and couldn't figure out why her car was messing up. I knew instantly that it was most likely her alternator and that she needed it to be replaced. Unfortunately for her, she wasn't from this town and her parents lived super far away. So having a soft spot for people who need help, I offered to, while still being on the clock, take her to a parts store so she could get the part she needed and install it for her. After all of that, she was really happy and grateful. She asked if she could get her number just in case something happened. She meant my number. I gave her the store number and wished her a good day. This girl came by asking if we could check the air pressure in her tires before she drove home. Before I start, we actually struck up a conversation about where she was from and what she was majoring in. I live in a college town, and other things. Mostly about her, and that was it. 2 weeks later, she came back asking for an air pressure check again, and by this time, I totally forgot about her. That's actually how we started our second conversation, by her realizing and then asking, "You don't recognize me, do you?" And my literal response was, "No, I do this tons of times every day." And while I was checking her air pressure, she made a point to step out of her car in an attempt to get me to realize she was interested. Needless to say, it didn't work and she left. One of my technicians came up to me afterwards and pretty much told me that I was stupid for not noticing that a hot girl was trying to flirt with me, and it went way over my head. Story 18. It's Halloween night, 2011. I'm on frat row at my local university. I'm dancing with this girl, and after a while she turns around and says, "Hey, want to go home and smash my pumpkin?" It being Halloween, I figured she was just trying to be witty in a Halloween-themed way of asking me to be intimate. We leave the party together and we're walking back to her place, just a few blocks down the road. We finally arrive at her place, and she quickly runs through the fence and up to her porch. I figured she was just eager to get me home, but she was actually just overly excited to grab her pumpkin from the front porch. She holds it up to me and says, "Guess what it is?" A bit confused, I just said, "I don't know," which she exclaimed, "It's a minion from Despicable Me. Do you think I should just do it here on the porch?" Puzzled, I analyzed the situation further and realized that she wanted to actually smash her real pumpkin. I told her she should do it in the front yard so there would be less mess to clean up afterwards. She nodded her head in agreement and with one full over-her-head swing, smashed that straight into the pavement. Pumpkin chunks flying all over the place, to which she then immediately lunged at me and began kissing me. Now, even more puzzled, I kissed her back. And without either of us saying a word, she turned to her house, waved me in, led me into her bedroom, and we did it. Story 19. There was this girl I was hanging out with for a couple of weeks after she broke up with her boyfriend. Her spiel was that she always rushes into relationships, and just for once in her life, she wanted to be able to say that she was honestly in love with someone before having intimacy. I took that to heart, and we spent the next 2 weeks in that summer going to the fair and holding hands and rides, going to the movies and her holding my hand and putting her head on my shoulder, stargazing in the mountains in the hood of my car with a bottle of apple cider because she didn't drink. One day while I'm at work, she keeps texting me that she's looking forward to me getting off work and picking her up to spend the evening together. We went out to dinner where she held my hand across the table and looked at me with such intensity that I had to stop myself from telling her I love her on more than one occasion. The goal of intimacy was completely gone. I would have waited forever for her, and I honestly felt that she felt the same way. She spent the night at my house that night and we just snuggled in bed and talked until 4 a.m. I fought sleep so hard because I never wanted it to end. But we finally got to sleep. The next morning we got up and I drove her to her parents' place so she could get ready for work. My heart was still pounding at the thought of this beautiful girl who had become my entire world. When I dropped her off at the mall that morning, she leaned over and kissed me passionately and asked if I wanted to hang out that night. I exclaimed yes, and she walked into the mall entrance. I waited all day for a call and it never came. Tried calling once, and her dad said that she had a friend over, but that he would let her know I called. I felt like it was a test, and I didn't want to push it, so I just tossed and turned stressing out that night. She had to work again the next day, but I decided to play it cool and let her make contact. That lasted until that evening. I couldn't take it anymore and called her. To my surprise, she answered right away. I asked how her day went and told her that I had been disappointed when I didn't hear from her. She said that she was sorry and she hadn't called, but a guy that worked at the mall, Abercrombie, had invited her to a party, so she went. I asked her how it was, and she said it was good. And while explaining who all was there, I heard her yell at her toddler sister, "No, Brandy, don't touch that blanket. Willie did something on it." The next question was obviously if she and Willie from Abercrombie had hooked up, and her answer was yes. They were seeing each other now. At that point, I just dejectedly told her that I thought things were happening between us and that I was a little disappointed that she started seeing someone else. Her response? "Michael, you're so cute, sweet, and funny. I hope I can someday find someone just like you." Story 20. So I was a transfer student to a 4-year college and used the Yik Yak app. People wanted to do a Thanksgiving dinner over break at a dorm for the people that didn't leave. So we made a cheap spaghetti dinner. Only 5 people showed up, but the OP of that post was a really cute freshman, so we exchanged numbers and kept talking for a while. Well, we went out to dinner a bunch of times and texted literally daily. So she invited me back to her dorm, and my internal voice said, "She wants the D." So I got all cleaned up, shaved, washed, smelled good, etc. Go over to her place after we ate and put on Netflix. And this is when it took a turn. She immediately said, "This is not Netflix and chill. I'm not the type of girl." I thought that was fair and started to watch the movie. Then she invited me to sit on her bed since dorm rooms don't have much furniture. So I'm sitting on the end of the bed and she asks me to lay down with her. Then she falls asleep. So I try to leave. Then she kind of wakes up, asks where I'm going and to come back to bed. So we pretty much spoon or sleep all night with the absolute worst time of my life. And in the morning, she asks why I'm still there after she told me to stay. Story 21. Sitting and talking with a girl during algebra class while in college. We just got the results of an assignment we both did poorly on. She was upset. She really struggled in this class. She asked me to come to her dorm room that night to tutor her. I told her how bad I was doing in that class, but she didn't seem to care. She even had a bit of flirting in her tone when she asked me to come over to her dorm. That night, when I got to her dorm room, her roommate quickly left and said something to the effect of, "You two have fun. I'm going to iron my socks," or some other terrible thing to pass time. Obviously, she was just giving us the dorm to use for ourselves. On her way out, she had a big smile on her face looking at me. Basically, she looked at me like she already knew what her roommate was going to do to me. We were barely alone for 5 minutes when she suggested we study in her bed. If she had a billboard saying she wanted to have intimacy, it would have been less obvious at this point. I got next to her in her bed and started to make a move. She immediately shot me down. I was so blindsided. I don't remember what she actually said, but it was basically, "Why would you think I wanted you to try and make a move on me?" I was so confused and embarrassed. I rambled to myself about how that situation went wrong in my entire walk across campus. Story 22. Back in college, I spent a lot of time with one girl. We did everything together. She had me over to meet her folks and family for Thanksgiving, a 5-hour drive from where we are. She would talk to me about her hopes and dreams and what she wanted out of life. We spent many a night together, just talking and relaxing together. When I worked up my courage to ask her out, she told me not to, that she wasn't ready for a relationship. Then things got really weird. I went on to date another girl, on her suggestion, at which point she started flirting with me heavily, culminating in crying to my best friend and complaining that I picked the wrong girl and should have picked her, even though she made it quite clear not to make any moves. Now, granted, I did pick the wrong girl, and wrong girl after that. I kept picking the wrong girls until I met and married my wife. Each time we would break up with a girl, she would be there to attempt to rekindle our friendship, and then complain that I chose someone else. And she would casually drop that she would never date someone like me because I wasn't her type or a looker by any means. She was wild. Story 23. So I had been chatting up this girl at work and via text for a good 6 months. She was the type that you would get a good morning from text all day, say goodnight and hear from her for 2 weeks. Feel me? Anyway, she was my type, not just in looks, but her personality. Progressed into a couple dates going for drinks, but nothing happened. I thought we had a good time, but she would usually just say goodnight and walk into her house. I got a text about 8 p.m. "What are you doing?" I texted her back and said I just got done at the gym and was home. She told me she was out with her friends drinking and that they had all gone home, but she didn't want the night to end and asked if I wanted to go over. She told me we could watch Sons of Anarchy. Never seen it, but she wasn't too interested in TV. In my eyes, I said, "Oh, baby, about time this work pays off." Literally a shower change, a couple shots to catch up on my way. She's hammered, but not sloppy. We greet and chat. She then turns on the TV and asks me if I've seen the show. I said no, but would watch. She then spends 2 hours over the course of many episodes catching me up on the show and its details. I entertained the convo for the duration while slowly losing my buzz and willpower. The episode ended and I said, "Who cares? Trying it now." I lean over and kiss her. She immediately pushes me away and says, "I'm not that type of girl," and tells me to leave. Guess I got the wrong hint. Never spoke again. Story 24. Coworker I've never talked to before went out of her way to ask me to move some things to her car. Started conversations like, "Movies are nice. You ever go to the movie theater?" and stuff like that. Then she asked if I was going to the company Christmas party with anyone. And after I said no, she invited me to go with her. I said yes. Next day, I invited her out to lunch to scope her out. She agreed, and we're vibing over sushi. She asks about other women I've been seeing, what I look for in a woman, etc. Christmas party rolls around and she shows up all cute. We hang out the entire time. It was casino night. I was winning big, and she said, "You're good at trusting your gut feeling." The party ends, and I tell her we should go onto the roof of the hotel to enjoy the view, and she agrees enthusiastically. We try random doors to find roof access. We talk about how much we're enjoying the night, laughing, etc. We find a door with a big roof access sign, so we lunge for it with excitement. But it's locked. Luckily, we found a balcony nearby that had a view of the city. We start talking about incredibly deep stuff, about psychology, psychedelics, human nature, and love at first sight. I see my chance and say, "You know how you said I'm good at trusting my gut feeling? Well, I've got a gut feeling about you." We lock eyes together. I start to lean in for the kiss, and she panics and forces out, "Yeah, we're going to be friends for a long time." I've never felt so deflated. This is how the night goes. I feel stupid. Just want to go home. I try to pretend I'm not sad and lonely, fake a cheerful remark and zone out while she's talking to my face. My eyes water and enough time passes for me to appropriately say that we should head back inside. I walk her to her car and awkwardly wave her goodbye through the window. Story 25. I had this huge crush on this girl back in 6th grade. She also seems to like me a lot as well. We were both smart and kind of nerdy, so I hoped I might be able to get my first girlfriend. She then got accepted into this really awesome program that sent her to Japan for a couple weeks to go to school there. The school made a big thing out of it, as my school had like 80 students or so. Kindergarten was its own class, then 1 to 3rd grade was a single class, 4 to 6 was a single class, and 7 and 8th were together as well. Just to give you an idea of how small the school was. On her last day before she left, we were hanging out and kind of geeking out over how exciting this was for her. The school day ended, we hugged and went our separate ways. Over that weekend, I found a note in my trumpet case from her, saying how sad she was about leaving and how she wished we could have hung out more. She asked that I meet her behind the school at lunch in a couple weeks when she got back. Oh boy, was this one hell of a hint. I'm waiting, super anxious about all this, freaking out, nauseous. I didn't know how to act because no girl had ever shown real interest in me. The day arrived and she was back. We were both really coy and weird around one another, but lunch finally happened and I snuck out back to meet her. My heart was racing. Then it sank. I got back there to find my sister and 3 of her friends all laughing at me. "Why would you ever think she liked you?" Laughter at my expense. They wrote the note. I knew I wouldn't tell anyone about it just to make me wait for today to walk into an emotional ambush. That destroyed me. I couldn't trust people for a long time, much less every 100% believe a girl was showing actual interest in me. I totally took on my namesake after that. I went full beta male, using the description from a dirty job. Became paranoid that everyone was always out to mess with me. It was horrible. Story 26. Made the decision in college not to date till I finished my degree. Met 2 girls that became my best friends. One was a swinger and not into guys like me, and I was fine with that. The other had her husband divorce her after being married for 8 years. I was her friend and listened without making moves on her. The second semester starts. Everything's going smoothly. Only Polly, the divorcee, is constantly hugging me. At some point, she even kisses me. She's always wanting to get hammered and have fun. She's hanging all over me all the time. Third semester starts, and I'm constantly saying it'd be bad for our friendship if anything were to happen between us. Fourth semester arrives, and my college education makes me realize I am not freaking Superman or a monk. We start kissing a lot more and going on dates and hanging out to watch movies. Finally, the fifth semester arrives. It's the day before Halloween. We're over at my sister's where I'm living, watching scary movies with my sister and my swinger friend. We run out of stuff to drink, so I volunteer to go get more since I'm the only sober one. I don't drink. Polly wants to go along. When we finally pull into the drive, she slides over and starts kissing me. I finally surrender and kiss her back. She suddenly stops kissing me and returns to her seat with a surprised look on her face. She says we should go in since everyone is waiting for us. Inside, we finish watching our movie, and she and her other friend leave and go home. The next time I see her is my first class on Monday after Halloween. I'm in class, seated at this big square table that all the students sit at. It's like a big kitchen table. Polly's to my right. A guy friend of hers that I haven't met is seated across from me. He's glaring at me furiously while Polly is madly avoiding eye contact with me. It comes out near the end of class that the man across from me is her fiancé that I never knew about. After 2 weeks of Polly avoiding me, I finally forced my other friend, who says she doesn't want to get in the middle of it, to tell me what the hell is wrong with Polly. Evidently, Polly had gone around telling everyone that I tried to take advantage of her while she was hammered. So everyone with a connection to her and I thought I was some sleazy date. I really read 5 semesters worth of kissing wrong. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.